Hi gentlemen, welcome to the last part of chapter 8 on excretion, and in this final part of the chapter, we want to consolidate what we have learned about the kidney and understand what happens when the kidney fails. What are the different treatment plans that patients can consider and the science behind this treatment plan in the event of kidney failure. So let's just bring out two main important points on the role of kidney. We have learned about the structure, we have understand how the different parts of the nephron works, and ultimately we also talked about the ultrafiltration and selective reabsorption process. So to summarize, there are two roles that the kidney plays among the many others. So the 2 points that I would like to emphasize is, number one, the kidneys are excretory organs. They are capable of removing metabolic waste products such as urea, excess water, and mineral salt in the form of urine. And we also learned that kidneys can also regulate water potential in the blood with the help of the hormone ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So the presence of this hormone can help to regulate the water potential in the blood to bring it back to normal. As too little or too much water in the blood have detrimental effects. So what happens when kidney fails? If a person only has one kidney failure, the person can still lead a normal life. In some cases, they may have to take some medication or even dialysis with only one kidney available. So depend on the extent of the damage in one kidney and how much the other functioning kidney can take. However, if both fail to function, a person will die without proper medical treatment. The two options typically available are kidney transplant and kidney dialysis. We learned about organ transplants. What are the pros and cons and considerations to have before conducting a kidney transplant. So in this part of the chapter, we want to focus more on dialysis. How does dialysis works? It mimics the function of kidney to clean and filter the blood from patient, and a patient has to undergo dialysis at least 2 to 3 times a week, with each session lasting between 3 to 5 hours. So you can imagine how long and tedious this process is if a patient is unable to undergo kidney transplant immediately due to factors such as the lack of donor or the lack of a compatible donor that can help to donate a kidney for transplantation, and many other factors. So while waiting for a kidney transplant, patients have to undergo dialysis since both their kidneys are not functioning. Before I go into the steps involved in dialysis, let me play you a video to walk you through how a dialysis machine looks like and how it exactly works.
The kidneys are the main organs of osmoregulation and excretion. If they fail to function, the water content of our body cannot be regulated, and metabolic waste will build up in the body. This may cause death. A dialysis machine or kidney machine can help patients with kidney failure to remove metabolic waste from their body. How does the machine work? A dialysis machine consists of a system of dialysis tubing bathed in a dialysing fluid. The dialysis tubing is differentially permeable. It only allows small molecules such as urea and glucose, but not large molecules such as plasma proteins and blood cells to pass through. The dialyzing fluid has the same concentration of solutes as normal plasma, but has no metabolic waste. Therefore, urea diffuses from the blood to the dialyzing fluid down the concentration gradient, while glucose and other useful substances are retained in the blood. This method of removing metabolic waste from the blood is called hemodialysis.
If you have ever been
So I hope the video gives you a little idea of how dialysis machine work, but let me bring you through it step by step. I have also provided another video on a documentary of Singapore's fight against kidney failure for those who are interested to find out more in the context of Singapore. So let's take a look at how dialysis machine work. First thing, a fistula, which is a connection between the artery and vein, has to be surgically done. Alright, so this connection is made via surgery before dialysis can take place. So I have left you a question below. Why? Right? Why is a fistula needed, and what is the purpose of surgically combining an artery and vein before dialysis is conducted? So let's take a look at the general image of the dialysis machine first. Alright, it really mimics the idea of a nephron. So the dialysis tubing works like the tubule. Okay. Where the metabolic waste products will be removed as it passes through the dialysis fluid. So the first step is blood has to be drawn from the vein of the patient's arm and pumped through the tubing in the dialysis machine. Alright, so often because vein contains high in waste product concentration. So, and also you can think about it, what is the blood pressure in vein as compared to artery? It is definitely lower in blood pressure as well. So these are some characteristics of the blood flowing through the vein. It will be brought through the pump and undergoes an entire long and narrow and very coy tubing before the blood is then pumped back into the vein when it's clean and filtered. So the tubing is immersed in dialysis fluid, and as mentioned in the video, the walls of the tubing are partially permeable to allow small molecules to pass through. Alright, so as it goes through the dialysis fluid, urea and other metabolic waste product will undergo diffusion, while large molecules like blood cells, platelets, proteins remain in the tubing. We'll talk more about what components can be found in the dialysis fluid, but just a quick context, the dialysis fluid has the same component as normal blood plasma without the waste products. Alright, and then finally the blood returns back to the vein as clean and filtered blood. So I pause over here to pose you a question. What is the purpose of a fistula? Pause the video to take down some thoughts that you have in your mind in the box provided below. So as mentioned in my earlier part, the fistula is a direct connection between an artery and vein on the arm. So what is the purpose of this fistula? Number one, as we know, the blood pressure in vein is often lower, so it will take a longer time to enter the dialysis machine, and you can see that the dialysis machine even has a pump to pump the blood at high pressure. So having high blood pressure in the artery, helps to increase the pressure of blood in the vein entering the dialysis machine with the help of the fistula. Secondly, as more blood at higher pressure flows into the vein for dialysis patient, the vein becomes larger and also stronger over time, allowing more blood to flow through the vein, especially when patients have to do 2 to 3 times a week and up to 5 hours each time. So you can imagine if the blood flow is slow, it will take a longer time for dialysis to happen. So, based on your knowledge of diffusion, can you list down what components should be found in the dialysis fluid and why? Pen down your thoughts as well in this box below. So let me run through the features of dialysis machine. Okay, so ultimately the goal is to have clean and filtered blood. So if we compare the patient's blood before dialysis versus the dialysis fluid, what should be present in the fluid and what should not be present in the fluid. So typically what's in the patient blood includes glucose, amino acid, mineral salts, water, and metabolic waste product like urea. So if we want urea to be removed, there should be no urea in the dialysis fluid so that diffusion can happen. Water and mineral salts must be at the normal level. So the dialysis fluid, if you think about it, should look like normal, healthy blood, but without the waste product. Alright, so the glucose, amino acid, mineral salts, and water must be the same concentration of these solutes inside the dialysis fluid. Alright, so if for some patient they might be low in glucose, when the dialysis fluid has the same concentration of what normal blood glucose level should look like, alright, it can also diffuse from fluid back to the blood so that the patient has enough glucose, mineral salts, amino acids, and water in the dialysis fluid. Alright, so over here, first point, the dialysis fluid contains the same concentration of essential healthy substance as healthy blood, and these essential substances include glucose, amino acids, and mineral salts. So why it contains the same concentration? So that these substances do not diffuse out of the blood and into the fluid from the patient's blood. But if the patient's blood lacks these essential substances, they can diffuse from the dialysis fluid into the blood to supplement the lack of essential substances. Please note that the dialysis fluid does not contain any metabolic waste, so that this would maintain a steep concentration gradient to allow the waste product to diffuse out of the tubing and into the fluid. And this will also help to regulate water potential of the blood. The third feature is the dialysis tubing in the machine is long and narrow and coiled. So as the blood goes through the long and narrow tubing, it increases surface area to volume ratio to facilitate the exchange between blood and dialysis fluid. Last but not least, the blood flow is opposite of the flow of dialysis fluid. Let's take a look at this image over here. You can see that the direction is opposite each other. So why is this so? By having the blood and the dialysis fluid moving in opposite direction, it can help to maintain continuous concentration gradient for the removal of waste product. So you may not be able to visualize, so let me see if I could do a simple picture on this. So let me illustrate with this simple diagram over here. Say that there is 10 units of urea in the blood and 0 unit of urea in the fluid. So as they pass each other, when they hit the middle region, alright, when they hit the middle region, there are, when there's 10 units of urea and 0 units of fluid, that is really a very steep concentration, and the urea will diffuse out. Say 2 units, it's being diffused out each time. Alright, then you will have 8 units left. Alright, and then the fluid will have 2 units in the next segment. Okay, and then when the next flow, alright, the next as blood flows, you can see that the steep concentration is still remain, and urea can diffuse out, say 2 units at each time, and then you get 6 units, and this is how the blood slowly gets clean as it moves in the opposite direction. But say if it moves in the same direction, okay, and then the fluid, if they are both moving in the same direction, starts off with 10 units of urea and 0 units of and say 2 units is being lost each time, right? Then there will be 8 units, and then plus 2 units. So you can see that the concentration is getting less steep and steep, and it gets slower also, less steep. Diffusion will also not be as fast. So let's say it still loses 2 units out. You get 6 units over here, and then there will be 4 units of urea. It gets smaller and smaller. Say it only lose 1 unit of urea. As the concentration gradient gets smaller and smaller, it might even look like that, and eventually you can see that the concentration gradient of blood and the fluid is the same, and no longer diffusion of urea and metabolic waste product can move out from the blood to the fluid. So it has to move in the opposite direction in order to maintain continuous, that's the keyword, continuous concentration gradient for the removal of waste product. And if you notice in the video also, the temperature of the dialysis fluid is the same as body temperature. So why is this so important? To make sure that temperature is optimal for any enzymatic metabolic reaction to happen in the blood. So I hope that this video gives you a glimpse of what dialysis machine looks like and how it works, and you must be able to, let's go back to the learning outcome, outline the mechanism. So you not only need to know the step-by-step procedure, but you also need to know the reason behind each procedure inside the dialysis machine, all right, to make sense of it. So try out the checkpoint questions and we'll review in class when I see you next week.